Hello all, in this video I'll be showing you a fix to cure slipping on budget parallel jaw clamps, these Salter body clamps in my case, and as I picked some up for just £7 for the pair, I'll share a quick look at these Lidl Parkside one-handed quick clamps, which ended up needing a fix too. Starting with the Salter body clamps, otherwise known as parallel clamps, I was actually sent all these by the good folk at Salter's shop just over 2 years ago. Parallel clamps are quite a divisive clamp. Some people swear by them, others not so keen. Like most tools, their usefulness depends on what you do, I guess. For me personally, they're indispensable for some of the clamping tasks on my chair frames. They're deep jaws more suited to my work than, say, pipe or sash clamps. As I already had some of the Bessey Revos, which let's face it are one of the benchmarks for such clamps, I did a comparison between them and the Salter, basically noting that after a couple of months' use, I didn't favour either particularly in use. They both did what they were supposed to do, the Bessey just felt a little better doing it. Until now, that is. For some reason, the 600mm Salter clamps, and only the 600s bizarrely, started slipping one by one over the course of just a month last year. The 800 and 1100mm versions still working just fine. They've all had about the same level of use, so that in itself is strange. I've dropped in a shallow piece of timber between the jaws here, about the thickness of your average tabletop. My 600mm clamps will sometimes grip it, sometimes not. Typically, in my demo here, it grips and tightens down just fine. However, if I put one of my table saw jigs in the clamp, which stands taller than the jaws, I can keep turning the handle as much as I want and it just won't bite. It doesn't matter where along the bar it is either, it just won't grip if something is as tall as or taller than the jaws. And this happens every time and only on the 600 clamps. It's driving me absolutely mad. Thankfully, upon examining my Besseys, I noticed they provided a possible solution. You should be able to make out inside the red casing there, at the bottom of the clamping arm, is a grub screw. This not only means the point of contact to the bar would be a hardened or stainless steel screw, not the less durable casting of the arm itself like on the Salter, but if it should wear and the Bessey starts to slip, just give the grub screw a turn for a new set of threads to bite down. Simple genius. All these type of clamps operate on the same principle and are more or less constructed the same, so the steps for the Salter here should work for pretty much all brands. Start the disassembly by taking off the front protector so its body can be separated. Slide or pop off any stops so you can slide parts off. Undo any screws or bolts holding the clamp body together. On some, it might not have bolts or screws, and the casting will need popping or prying apart. With the casing open, just separate the parts so you can do what you need to the clamping lever. When you open it up, try and make a mental note of where all the bits are and their orientation, of course. You could always take a picture to be certain, but they're pretty simple things. So here's where we're going to try and operate. The top of the oval hole for the bar in the clamping arm, just below the handle. It's this that bites down when you tighten, and clearly the bit that's worn on mine. I'm going to drill into it, trying to position the hole so it's right on the inside top edge of the oval, so the threads of the grub screw will just stand proud. First step is a guide mark scratched with an awl. I set my gauge to just over 2.5mm, or just under 3 for an M6 screw or grub. I go in first with a 1.5mm bit just to give me a little starter hole. I then drill out with a 4mm bit to a depth of about 10mm. Then finish the hole with a 5mm bit. You can hopefully see there my drilled hole is just blistering into the oval. That's what we're after. Then it's ready for the M6 tap. I'll show you again because I think it shows it more clearly with the tapped thread. You can see the thread blistering into the hole for the clamping bar. That blistering now needs smoothing off a bit or filing away completely. It's not this debris you want biting down on the clamp bar, but the screw threads. With that done, your final step would be to add the grub screw. I don't have any M6 grub screws at the minute, so I'm just using a screw and cutting off the head. You should be able to just make out the shiny threads poking through there. Perfect. I could use the angle grinder to grind a slot in the remaining screw so I can turn it at some point in the future, and I certainly will if I need to have these apart again. I'll crack on as is for now though. A quick test fit to make sure it slides on the bar okay. If you find your threads are a bit proud and obstructing free movement along the bar, just take your file to the threads. I had to do it on one of the 4 clamps I did and it still worked fine, as long as you leave yourself a good clean edge that can bite down, not a rounded over one. Happy? It's time to piece back together and then moment of truth time. Well, it clamps the shallow workpiece well still, that's a decent start. What about this tall jig though? Oh, that's just beautiful. Bites down nice and quick, I'd call that a success. So before I move on to the Lidl clamps, I just want to show you this Salter clamp. This was the first one I did, and it had an M5 grub screw, a size of grub screw I have plenty of, but I found it really fiddly. So the next few, like the one I've just showed you, I did for M6. That or even an M8 is what I'd advise. It just gives you that little more room to position your starter holes into the meat of the clamping lever to get the best results. So on a recent jaunt up the middle aisle of Lidl, I spotted the twin pack of these 300mm quick clamps for just £6.99. I wasn't expecting much, but first impressions is alright. Decent weight and seems to have a proper ABS plastic composite on the bodies. I know these are brand new, but I love how freely these move. Others of this type have, even when new, been a bit sticky in spots. Not these, that's a plus. The release button, a cheap feeling plastic, is immediate and a light touch. I'd say that's another plus point. Depressing the lever, you notice it not only has a short throw, but an equally short climb too. I don't really feel one way or another about that, just something I noticed compared to similar clamps. Like most of these style of clamps, you can undo the fixing foot and flip it so the clamp becomes a spreader. Nice. The clamp feet protectors, like the red overmould that isn't an overmould on the handles, is a slightly rubberised plastic. Not brittle hard, but not soft either. You'll certainly want to use a protective shim when clamping. In fairness though, plastic feet of whatever quality always need shimming to protect work anyway. These red cheapy clamps I bought from Rutland's I got as a job lot of 12, and they all have rubber feet which, although better at not marking work, still need protectors as the rubber over time has taken on various substances and glues from around the shop and leave a print on whatever they clamp. They are incredible these though. They feel rubbish quality but are super powerful for a quick clamp and seem to have lasted okay. Talking of which, how well do these Parksides actually clamp? Well enough for most tasks you'd want a quick clamp for, but the force isn't great. You can see there I can turn the clamp piece without too much trouble, though it is held between the jaws pretty firm. You can't really ratchet up the power on these, they just get to a point where pulling on the lever more does nothing. As a comparison, here's one of my old red ones doing the same thing. Holds it much more firmly and not just due to the rubber feet. You'll notice it has enough force to actually bend its bar, something the Parkside has zero chance of doing. Thought I'd try them on a slightly different kind of clamping, just 2-ply rips laid across each other. Tried to get it to apply maximum force and it's doing alright in this instance. You could certainly use these to hold a well-fitting joint together while glue goes off, or tacking something in place while you fix. Not a clamp to pull stubborn joints together though, it's just not got that kind of welly. As I was trying the second clamp doing the same task, I noticed something. It's forcing the two body pieces apart under pressure. Now that ain't right. Can you see that there? One of the fixing screws must have threaded or something. Looks like I'm fixing another clamp. I've pulled all the screws out bar the threaded one. They're these type that self-tap into plastic holes, universally rubbish. So there's the guts of the clamp, nothing too shocking, looks alright in fact, certainly worth saving. There's the broken screw hole causing a problem. I just drill through it and the hole next to it that end of the clamp. After that, body back together, I replaced the screws that were okay, and where I drilled out, I had a couple of M4 screws and nuts. And there we are. I did actually dig out more M4 screws and put them in each screw hole in each clamp since. Unfortunately, the improved ability of the machine screws to hold the body together doesn't improve the clamp's power or anything, but the body at least stays put. Should you buy a set of these Parkside then? Well, for £7, why not? They're fine for when you just need a hold in a hurry where brute force isn't required. The guts of it look like they'd hold up for a while too. That'll do it then I think folks. I hope the parallel clamp fix may be of some use to someone out there. Do share it if you know someone who might benefit from it. The Parkside clamps were just a little extra really. What do you reckon? Too cheap and nasty, or like me, for £7 would you be in the why not camp? Love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Like if you did, sub if you aren't already, and as ever, if you made it this far, thanks for watching.